Prior to 1994, immigrants from elsewhere faced discrimination, even violence in South Africa, due to competition for scarce economic opportunities. After majority rule in 1994, contrary to expectations, the incidence of xenophobia also increased. In 2008, at least 62 people were killed in the xenophobic uprising and attacks. In 2015, another nationwide spike in xenophobic attacks against immigrants in general prompted a number of foreign governments to begin repatriating their citizens. A research poll conducted in 2018 showed that 62% of South Africans expressed negative sentiment about foreign nationals living and working in South Africa, believing that immigrants are a burden on society by taking jobs and social benefits, and that 61% of South Africans thought that immigrants were more responsible for crime than other groups. There is no factual evidence to substantiate the notion that immigrants are the main culprits of criminal activity in South Africa, even though the claim is incorrectly made, sometimes by politicians and public figures. Between 2010 and 2017, number of foreigners living in South Africa increased from 2 million people to 4 million people. The proportion of South Africans' total population that is foreign-born increased from 2.8% in 2005 to 7% in 2019. According to the United Nations International Organization for Migration, South Africa is the largest recipient of immigrants on the African continent. Xenophobia in South Africa before 1994. Attacks against Zimbabwean and Congolese immigrants. Before 1984 and the end of hostilities in that country, an estimated 50,000 to 350,000 Mozambicans fled to South Africa. While never granted refugee status, they were technically allowed to settle in the Bantustan or black homelands created during the Apartheid system. The reality was more varied, with the homeland of Lebowa banning Mozambican settlers outrightly, while Gazankulu welcomed the refugees with support in the form of land and equipment. Those in Gazankulu, however, found themselves confined to the homeland and labeled for deportation should they officially enter South Africa. And evidence exists that their host denied them access to economic resources. Unrest and civil war likewise saw a large number of Congolese people immigrated to South Africa, with many coming in illegally. In 1993 and 1997, subsequent studies found indication of xenophobic attitudes towards those refugees, typified by them being denied access to primary health care to which they were technically entitled. Despite a lack of direct comparable data, xenophobia in South Africa is preserved to have significantly increased after the election of a black majority government in 1994. Academic audit states that following the South Africans' transition to democracy in 1994, a new non-racial xenophobia has emerged in the country that has specifically targeted refugees. According to a 2004 study published by the South African Migration Project, the study was based on a citizen survey across member states of the South African development community and found South Africans expressing the harshest anti-immigrant sentiment, with 21% of South Africans in favor of a complete ban on foreign entry and 64% in favor of strict limitations on the numbers permitted. By contrast, the next highest proportion of respondents in favor of a complete ban on immigration were in neighboring Namibia and Botswana at 10%. A 2004 study by the Center for the Study of Violence and Reconciliation of Attitudes among Police Officers in the Johannesburg area found that 87% of respondents believe that most undocumented immigrants in Johannesburg are involved in crime. To substantiate the perception, such views, combined with the vulnerability of illegal aliens, led to abuse, including violence and extortion, some analysts have also argued. In March of 2007, meeting with Home Affairs Minister, a representative of Burundian refugees in Durban claimed that immigrants could not rely on police for protection. but instead found the police mistreating them, stealing from them, and making unconfirmed allegation that they sell drugs. 2 years earlier, at a similar meeting in Johannesburg, Mapasi had admitted that refugees and asylum seekers were mistreated by police with xenophobic attitude. According to a 1998 Human Rights Watch report, immigrants from Malawi, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique living in the Alexandra Township were physically assaulted over a period of several weeks in January of 1995 as armed gangs identified suspected undocumented migrants and marched them to the police station in an attempt to clean the township of foreigners. The campaign, known as Go Back Home, blamed foreigners for crime and sexual attacks. In September of 1998, a Mozambican national and 2 Senegalese citizens were thrown out of a train. The assault was carried out by a group returning from a rally that blamed foreigners for unemployment, crime, and the spread of AIDS. In 2000, 7 foreigners were killed on the Cape Flats over a 5-week period in what police describe as xenophobic murders, possibly motivated by the fear that outsiders will claim property belonging to the locals. In 2001, residents of Zamprut's informal settlement gave Zimbabwean citizens 10 days to leave the area. When the foreigners failed to leave voluntarily, they were forcefully evicted and their shanks were burnt down and looted. Community members said that they were angry that Zimbabweans were employed while locals remained jobless, and blamed the foreigners for a number of crimes. No injuries were reported amongst the affected Zimbabweans. In the last week of 2005 and the first week of 2006, at least 4 people, including 2 Zimbabweans, died in the Olive settlement after foreigners were blamed for the death of a local man. Sharks belonging to the foreigners were set alight, and locals demanded the police remove all immigrants from the area. In August of 2006, Somalian refugees appealed for protection after 21 Somalian traders were killed in July of that year and 26 more in August. The immigrants believed the murders to be motivated by xenophobia, although police rejected the assertion of a concerted campaign to drive Somalian traders out of township in the Western Cape. Attacks on foreign nationals increased in late of 2007, and it is believed that there were at least a dozen attacks between January and May of 2008. The most several incidents occurred on the 8th of January of 2008 when 2 Somalian shop owners were murdered in the Eastern Cape towns of Jeffreys Bay and East London. Then in March of 2008, when 7 people were killed, including Zimbabweans, Pakistanis, and Somalian national, after their shops and shacks were set alight near Pretoria. May of 2008 riot. On the 12th of May of 2008, a series of riots started in the township of Alexandra in the near eastern part of Johannesburg when locals attacked immigrants from Mozambique, Malawi, and Zimbabwe, killing 2 people and injuring 40 others. Some attackers were reported to have been singing Jacob Zuma's campaign song, "Bring Me My Machine Gun." In the following weeks, the violence spread, first to other settlements, then to coastal cities of Durban and Cape Town. Attacks were also reported in parts of the Southern Cape, the Northwest, and Free State. By the end of the riot, 62 people were reported dead. 1,400 suspects were arrested in connection with the violence. 9 months after the attack, 128 individuals had been convicted and 30 found not guilty. In 105 concluded court cases, 208 cases had been withdrawn and 156 were still being held. 1 year after the attacks, prosecutors said that 137 people had been convicted. 182 cases had been withdrawn because witnesses had left the country. 51 cases were on the way or ready for trial, and 82 had been referred to further investigation. In late May of 2009, reports emerged regarding a possible resurgence of xenophobic related activity and the organizing of attacks in Western Cape. Reports of threats and secret meetings by local businessmen surfaced as well in some parts of South Africa. Samora Mitchell in Philip once again emerging as a flashpoint. Reports emerge of secret meeting by local businessmen discussing what to do about Somalian shopkeepers. The anti-eviction campaign brought these issues to the open by organizing series of anti-xenophobia meetings attempting to find the root cause of the crisis. In November of 2009, a community of 1,500 and 2,500 Zimbabwean farm workers were forcibly evicted from their homes in the informal settlement of Demont, a grape farming town in the Western Cape. No person were physically assaulted, but homes were trashed and looted, and these led to the biggest displacement of foreign nationals since May of 2008. The Zimbabweans were then housed in a displaced persons camp where some remained for a year until it was closed. Researchers identify the role of a ward councillor in inciting the attacks and possible conclusion with informal labor brokers who had financial interest in getting rid of their Zimbabwean competitors. South African workers also accused farmers of employing the Zimbabweans at less than minimum wage. Farmers and Zimbabwean workers denied this very allegation. In 2010, the press carried various articles claiming that there would be massive planned xenophobic violence at the end of the 2010 Football World Cup. However, this did not happen. In July of 2012, there were new attacks in parts of Cape Town. April of 2015 attacks. In April of 2015, there was an upsurge in xenophobic attacks throughout the country. The attack started in Durban and spread to Johannesburg. Zulu King Goswell was accused of aggravating the attacks by saying that foreigners should go back to their countries. Moreover, foreigners, being a minority group with hardly any political muscle, they were an easy target of the majority of black working class citizens. Locals looted foreigners' shops and attacked immigrants in general, forcing hundreds to relocate to police stations across the country. The Malawian authorities subsequently began repatriating their nationals, and a number of other foreign governments also announced that they would evacuate their citizens. More than 300 people were arrested. On the 18th of April of 2015, a photographer from the Sunday Times photographed a brutal attack on a Zimbabwean man. The man, Emmanuel, died from his wounds. 4 suspects were arrested within 4 days of the publication of photographs in the edition of 19th May of the Sunday Times of the murder of Zimbabwean street vendor Emmanuel in Alexandra Township the previous day. Emmanuel's name was not included in the official list of 7 victims killed in April of 2015 attacks, including an Ethiopian, a Mozambican, a Bangladesh man, and a Zimbabwean, and 3 South Africans who were all killed in Zulu. Despite the government's insistence that Emmanuel's murder was not xenophobic, the South African National Defence Force was deployed in Alexandra Township following the publication of the image. On the 23rd of April, several thousand demonstrators marched through the central Johannesburg to protest against the spate of deadly attacks on immigrants. They sang songs denouncing xenophobia and carried banners that read, "We are all Africans," as immigrant workers crowded balconies shouting their support. In October of 2015, there were sustained xenophobic attacks in some parts of South Africa. It was reported that more than 500 people were displaced and more than 300 shops and homes looted and in some cases destroyed altogether. In these attacks, Muslims were specifically targeted. From 20th to the 23rd of June of 2016, a wave of riots hit some cities in South Africa. Although the riots were sparked by political discontent within the ASEAN, Somalia, Pakistan, and other foreign-owned shops and micro-enterprise were targeted for looting, and a number of foreigners were attacked. On Friday, 24th of February of 2017, a large-scale and unofficial sanctioned anti-immigrant protest was organized and held in Pretoria. Protesters marched to the Foreign Ministry and handed a petition to government representatives. Protesters accused immigrants of taking jobs from South Africans, causing crime, and complained that they are arrogant and they don't know how to talk to people, especially Nigerians. 136 protesters were arrested during the march. On the 25th of March of 2019, xenophobic riots targeting African immigrants broke out in some parts of South Africa again, including over port areas of Durban. Around 100 people attacked businesses owned by foreign nationals, resulting in around 50 people seeking shelter in a local police station and mosque. 3 people were killed in the riots. A speech given by the President Ramaphosa at the ACN election manifesto for the 2019 South African general election was blamed for contributing to xenophobic feeling, wherein Ramaphosa committed to cracking down on undocumented foreigners involved in criminal activities. The attacks on foreigners were criticized by both South African government and political parties amidst calls to ensure that xenophobic sentiment was not exploited for electoral purposes. On the 1st of September of 2019, riots and looting targeting shops owned by foreign nationals broke out again in South Africa, especially in Jepsy Town in Johannesburg CBD, following the death of a taxi driver. By the 3rd of September, police had made 189 arrests for looting around 50 businesses predominantly owned by Nigerians from the rest of the continent were reportedly destroyed or damaged during the incident. The riots coincided with a national truck driver strike protesting against employment of non-South African truckers. After riots resulted in 12 deaths in the first week of September, 640 of an estimated 100,000 Nigerians in South Africa signed up to take free flights offered by Nigeria to return to their country home. The riots led to a sit-in protest in Green Market Square, Cape Town by refugees demanding to be relocated to a third country outside of South Africa other than their own country of origin. Reports of xenophobic attack again, targeting foreign truck drivers and other foreigners were reported during the 2021 South African unrest. Reports of harassment of immigrants, traders in Soweto and Johannesburg by a group of dubbed Operation Dudula began emerging in mid-January of 2022. This was preceded by a social media campaign in June of 2020 calling for action against immigrants under the Operation Dudula banner. On the 12th and 13th of February of 2022, residents of Soweto and Alexandra marched to Hebrew and Orange Grove under the Operation Dudula banner to forcefully remove foreigners, claiming that undocumented foreign nationals were responsible for rising levels of crimes and immoral activity such as drug dealing and prostitution. High rates of unemployment and lack of economic opportunities for South African nationals were also cited as grievance by the group. The Dudula movement, a similar although unrelated movement to Operation Dudula, emerged around the same time in Alexandra, Johannesburg. Acting as a vigilante organization, it targets foreign nationals, its members believed to be undocumented. They denied targeting only blacks, undocumented foreigners, but undocumented foreigners of all races and national origins. Members of the movement have also expressed grievances with lawlessness, unemployment, and lack of economic opportunities as reason for joining. South African Small Business Development Minister said that foreign business owners cannot expect to coexist peacefully with local business owners unless they share their trade secrets. According to Zulu, foreign business owners had an advantage over South African business owners due to marginalization under apartheid. They cannot barricade themselves in and not share their practices with local business owners, Zulu said. The comments were met with widespread criticism. An inquiry by the Competition Commission, the country's antitrust regulator, had indicated that a difference in performance between foreign and local business owners has created a perception that foreigners are more successful than locals. While there is nothing wrong with examining the dynamics of competition, the insinuation that foreign business owners were to blame for the decline of South African-owned small business was worrying. Xenophobic statements were commonly made by politicians from a wide range of political parties during the 2019 South African general election. This has intensified as the ruling party risks losing its dominance of the political landscapes, and parties from across the spectrum have relied on anti-immigrant messaging to bolster electoral support. Much of the local mobilization appears rooted in struggle to control lucrative township tenants. The Refugee Act of 1998 initially granted significant rights to asylum seekers. However, these rights were curtailed in later amendments published in 2008, 2011, and 2017. Their right to seek work has been significantly limited, and refugees must now remain in the country for 10 years to apply for permanent residency. In addition, refugee seekers are denied asylum if they enter the country through an unrecognized port of entry, or fail to report to a refugee reception office within 5 days of entering the country. Thank you so much for watching this very video on Frank Speaks. If you find this exploration thoughtful, do well to like, drop a comment, and also share this very video with your friends and loved ones, and also subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching.